Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be talking a little bit about an upcoming style of speaking in our class. We're going to be talking about special occasion presentations. Now, why are we talking about special occasion speaking? Well, life is going to be full of events where you might be asked to give a speech. For example, think weddings, funerals, and graduations. At each of these events you can think about speeches you might have heard. For example, at a wedding you hear toasts, at funerals you tend to hear eulogies, and at graduations you might hear graduation speech or some kind of tribute to the grads. And speeches are part of what make these kinds of events memorable. And the whole goal of these speeches is to fulfill whatever the need is of that particular occasion, because every event has got its own particular requirements and things that it needs. And so in this video, we're going to be going over and talking about 4 areas of special occasion speaking. We're going to be talking about speeches of introduction, award speeches, commemorative speeches, and toasts. And for each of these, I'm going to give you some information, and then there will be a video, a clip that you will watch along with. Okay? So we're going to start with speeches of introduction. So a speech of introduction, the whole goal of a speech of introduction is to present somebody else to an audience. It's to present another speaker to an audience. So to give you an example, if you've ever been to JCC's graduation before, usually they have a guest speaker come in, and the president of the college, Dr. Johnson, will come up to the front of the auditorium and will introduce this person to the audience that's there for graduation. And usually a speech of introduction has 3 goals. Number 1, you want to make people enthusiastic to hear the speaker. So most of the time people are probably not going to know this person, or they're not going to know a whole lot about them. And so you want to make them enthusiastic about being here and listening to this person. Number 2, you want to make them interested in what this person has to talk about. So what are they speaking about to this audience, and why should we be interested in that? And number 3, you want to make them feel welcome. And that's going to help the speaker seem like a credible person when they come up. And so to make them feel welcome, usually you ask for a round of applause or something along those lines, okay? So a speech of introduction, you can almost think of it like you're the warm-up act. If you've ever been to a concert that had an opening act, most of the time people aren't there to see the opening act. They're there to see the main event, and the opening act kind of warms up the crowd. This is basically what you're doing here. Now, speeches of introduction, most of the time for major events, people don't bother with recording them, but I did actually find an example to show you. This is from a few years back. Duke University hosted John Legend, the musician, for their Martin Luther King Day event. And so John Legend, you won't see him in this clip. You're going to see an official from Duke University who introduces him to the audience. So let's take a look at that.
Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce John Legend. Well, I know that this could be a very long introduction on many accomplishments, but I know you didn't come here to hear me talk. So I'm going to make this very brief. John Legend is a gifted entertainer. His voice and songs have been enjoyed around the world. He was born in Springfield, Ohio, and began playing the piano at age 4. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and began his career at clubs and concerts in Philadelphia and New York. After college, he collaborated with some of the biggest names in popular music. His first solo album was released in 2004. It was certified platinum for sales and won him his first of 9 Grammys. His subsequent release went to sell millions of copies around the world. He's been critically acclaimed as a singer, lyricist, and instrumentalist. He has extended his talents to movies, television, and video. John has a parallel career in philanthropy. He founded a nonprofit called Show Me Campaign. It works for education reform in America and better health overseas. He assists minority career development through Management Leadership for Tomorrow, where he helped launch Career Prep program in 2003. He is committed to supporting education. He sits on the boards of Teach America, the Education Equality Project, the Harlem Village Academies, and Stand for Children. He is co-chair of Harlem Village Academy's National Leadership Board. In 2012, he was appointed by the World Economic Forum for the Forum for Young Global Leaders. He is the winner of 2 NAACP Image Awards, and in 2009, Care Humanities Award for Global Change. Time magazine named him one of the world's 100 most influential people. Please join me in welcoming John Legend.
Okay, so going back to the guidelines, it's not 100% perfect, but to be honest with you, I had kind of a hard time finding a clip to show you here. But it generally does what it needs to do. He does what he can to make us enthusiastic to hear John Legend. Now, he doesn't really talk much about John Legend's topic, though I will tell you that it was for a Martin Luther King Day event that focused on community service. So he does focus a lot on John Legend's philanthropy as opposed to his music career. And then at the end, he asks everyone to make John Legend feel welcome as he approaches the stage. So within kind of our basic goals, it pretty much does what it needs to do. Like I said, not 100% perfect, but it gets the job done. Okay. Now, our next type of speeches we're going to be focusing on deal with awards. Awards are one of those things that I've had people tell me before that if it meant they had to speak about it, they hope they never won an award. And I think that's kind of a sad attitude to have about it. So let's talk a little bit about award speeches. So there are 2 types of award speeches. There's a speech for when you present an award to someone else, and there's a speech for when you accept an award. A speech or presentation is going to be given when somebody is receiving a gift or award and you have to give it to them. Most commonly in the community, we tend to see these with like athletic awards. If any of you had an athletic awards banquet at your high school or anything along those lines, usually coach has to give out all the awards. If you were ever a coach or anything along those lines or a teacher, you'd be having to give out these awards at the end of the year. Okay. So if you have to present an award to somebody, this is short. It doesn't take a long time. The main purpose of a speech or presentation is to explain why that person is getting the award. So essentially you're listing out the accomplishments. For example, if you're presenting a sports award to somebody, you're probably explaining, what they did that qualified them for that award. Did they earn the most points on the team? Were they a good team player? Were they a good captain? What did they do? So you want to point out their achievements and make them meaningful for your audience. The other thing to consider is if it was some type of competition. For example, there were 4 or 5 nominees. You might want to consider praising the other competitors before you give out the award. Just mentioning that this was a really tough competitive field this year with a lot of qualified candidates. For some awards, it's an honor to even get nominated, even if you don't win. For example, with the Academy Awards, somebody could be nominated for that and they'll advertise themselves as Academy Award nominated actor Bubba Smith, for the rest of their lives. Even if they don't win, they're still Academy Award nominated because that's a big deal. So if it was a competition and you know who the competitors are, just consider saying something nice about them before you give out the award to the winner. Now, speeches of acceptance, let's say you hear your name called and it's your moment, you win your award. If you've ever seen an award show like the Oscars, the Grammys, any of those, you've seen acceptance speeches before. And an acceptance speech does not have to be hard, though if you don't prepare for it, it can be a little tricky. But a speech of acceptance is when you give thanks for a gift or an award. So 3 key things, if you do them, you will be golden on your acceptance speech. Number 1, the very first thing you do before you do anything else is thank the people who gave you the gift or the award. It's like when you get a birthday present. One of the very first things you do before you tear into that thing is you need to say, thank you, Grandma, thank you, brother, thank you, boyfriend, whoever it is, you need to thank them, okay? So you want to say thank you to whoever's giving you this gift or the award. If it's your coach, if it's an organization, if it's your boss, say thank you first. The second thing you can do after that is you can thank everybody else. So after you've thanked the person who gave you the award, thank the people who helped you get there. Now for some people you might mention your family. Some people like to thank mom, dad. Some people like to thank their coworkers, their boss, their teammates, but anybody who helped you get to where you are. If you're religious, this is also where you might want to thank God or whatever you choose to worship. That would fit in with that there if you feel that's important to your life. Okay. And then after you acknowledge everybody who helps you win that award, If you have time, with some acceptance speeches, you might consider giving the audience some words of wisdom or just saying something. With sports awards, a lot of times we'll see athletes like to give advice for people who want to be where they are someday. So, we're going to watch an example of a presentation and acceptance. This is from the Academy Awards a few years ago. This is going to be a French actor who is presenting the Oscar for Best Actress, and Jennifer Lawrence, who's pictured here, is going to win it. So, let's take a look at this clip. Okay, so with this clip, there are a few things to point out there. Number one, and this is going to sound mean until I explain it, but number one, did you see her trip up the stairs? A lot was made about that on social media when it first happened, because you know how social media can be. But one thing I really appreciate about this speech is that she did not let that ruin her night. Sometimes when you are at special events, just weird things can happen. When you're not in a controlled classroom environment, you might be in an outfit that you're not entirely comfortable in, or you might be in a situation where people are drunk, or just weird stuff can happen with families and drama. Like sometimes when you are out in the world, weird things can happen. And the fact that she tripped, she did not let it ruin her night. She got up, she finished her speech, and I give her full credit and applause for that, and I think it gives her license for it not to be 100% perfect. Within our guidelines, though, it does pretty much what it needs to do. The first thing she does is she thanks the Academy for giving her the award. She also thanks the other competitors and says how wonderful they were to her this year. She second thanks the people who helped her win the award, so she thanks her cast and she thanks her crew. And then at the end, she doesn't really have a lot of time. Oscar speeches, usually they kick them off the stage pretty fast. She did say happy birthday to a friend of hers, but in some longer acceptance speeches, they do have time to offer up some words of wisdom, and so if she'd had a little longer time, I bet she'd have probably offered up some kind of quote or something for kids who are interested in acting or something along those lines. Okay. Now, moving on to our third type of special occasion speaking, this is going to be a commemorative speech. Now, this is going to be one of the options you have for your upcoming special occasion speech. So in this class, you're going to have a special occasion speech that you're going to need to present. So check this course schedule for dates on that. When you get ready to present that, you're going to have two options, and one of those two options is going to be the commemorative speech. And a commemorative speech pays tribute to a person, a group of people, an institution, an idea, a thing. Essentially, a commemorative speech is you pick something or someone who's been very important to you, and you pay tribute to the things that make them wonderful and special. Okay. Now, a commemorative speech, usually the whole point of these is to inspire us and to help us understand and admire them. A commemorative speech really depends on creativity. It is less about information and more about emotion. Now, commemorative speeches are often seen at funerals. These are called eulogies. And a eulogy, if you've ever been to a funeral, you know usually you have a program that will give you some life information about this person who has died, so like a biography. But the eulogy is usually a family member or a close friend who talks about their memories with the deceased and what makes them special. And so a commemorative speech should do the same thing. Now, for this class, do you have to pick someone who is dead to do a commemorative speech for them? Absolutely not. We can absolutely pay tribute to people who are still alive and are around. And in fact, I would encourage that. You never know. Tell people that are special to you that they're special while you have that opportunity. But a commemorative speech, you pick someone who's important to you. Tell us why they inspire you, why we should admire them. These really depend well on creative language, on storytelling, on examples. A commemorative speech, some examples of ones I've seen. Sometimes people like to talk about family members or friends that are really special. Sometimes I've had someone talk about a sports team that had really inspired them one time. I had someone do a tribute to the Olympics one time and what that stands for. One I had that was really funny was someone did a tribute to their truck that they were about to trade in and how special it was and what it meant to their life. So you can be very, very creative with this. The one thing I would recommend steering away from is if you choose to speak about somebody who is recently deceased. If you cannot talk about somebody at home without getting choked up, it may not be a good idea to come in front of an audience and try to speak about them, because it's going to be very difficult to get through the speech. And I will tell you that I do need you to be able to finish it so that I can give you a grade. So with that being said, please make sure you choose something that you're going to be comfortable speaking about in front of an audience. So I'm going to show you an example of a commemorative speech. This is going to be a eulogy. This is going to be from the televised funeral of Michael Jackson a few years back. So Michael Jackson, most people are familiar with him as a pop star. During Michael Jackson's funeral, they asked several family friends to get up and speak about him. And in this clip, you're going to see two basketball players, Kobe Bryant and Magic Johnson, who were asked to speak about their connection to Michael. Now you're going to see Kobe, he's going to give some basic information about Michael. But when Magic starts speaking, he starts talking about his relationship and friendship with Michael, and then what Michael has meant to his life. So let's take a look at this clip.
Y'all know that nobody ever gave on stage like Michael Jackson. But Michael was also a true humanitarian who gave just as much off stage as he did on the stage. Michael and his family came from humble roots, and Michael always cared very deeply for those in need. And beyond all of his records that he broke as a recording artist, Michael even made the Guinness Book of World Records for most charities supported by a pop star. Because he gave so much to do so many of us for so long, Michael Jackson will be with us forever.
I met Jackie Jackson about 30 years ago, and he was a season ticket holder for the Lakers, as well as his brother Marlon. Jackie and I became friends, and he began to invite me out to their home. Then I got to know the brothers and the sisters and his incredible mother and father. We loved to play with firecrackers and just have fun. And Barry, just like you lost to the Jacksons in softball, so did I. And we had some incredible times together. They invited me to go on tour with the brothers. And then I got to see the genius of Michael Jackson. He was so incredible. He always had command of not only the band, his brothers, but also the audience. I truly believe that Michael made me a better point guard and basketball player as I watched him be so great and be the greatest entertainer ever. From there, Michael called me one day and said, I want to talk to you about being in a video, Remember the Time. But I had to double check with Jackie to make sure it was really Michael, because I was scared to death to go over to his house because this was my idol. He was everything to me. So I went over to his house to have dinner. The chef came out and said, what would you like? I said, some grilled chicken. So as we began to talk about the video and what he wanted me to do, the chef brought me out the grilled chicken, but he bought Michael out a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I went crazy like, wait a minute, Michael, you eat Kentucky Fried Chicken? That made my day. That was the greatest moment of my life. We had such a good time sitting on the floor, eating that bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I want to say this. This is a celebration of his life, of his legacy. I want to thank Michael for opening up so many doors for African Americans to be on daytime shows, late night shows. He allowed Kobe and I to have our jerseys in people's homes across the world because he was already there. And he opened all those doors for us.
Okay, so the clip does go on for a couple more minutes, but I'm going to stop it there. So within the realm of commemorative speeches, this one does some really good stuff, particularly Magic Johnson's part. It provides a very clear story connection with Michael. That's the Kentucky Fried Chicken story. That was obviously something very important to him. And then it also goes into a little bit about what made Michael special, not only to Magic Johnson, but also to African Americans in general. And so within commemorative speeches, you want to think about those things that make the individual you're speaking about special and admirable, and you just want to think about and incorporate those things. Okay. All right, and then finally, our last type of speech we're going to talk about here is going to be a toast. Okay, now this is the second option you have for your special occasion speech. So a commemorative speech is the first option, a toast is the second. And a toast is going to be considered to be some type of tribute speech that revolves around a specific accomplishment. So a toast revolves around something that a person has achieved. Usually we see these at weddings and social gatherings like parties, but typically you see them at things like weddings, graduation events, promotions, retirement parties, any of those types of things where someone has achieved something special, people might offer a toast. And so I have one more video to show you guys. We're going to watch this, and then I'm going to go over some tips for toasts with you.
Everything is at stake in a wedding toast.
What people are worried about is that they're going to get up and make a fool of themselves. There are a lot of do's and there's a lot of don'ts.
Wedding toast can go really, really bad.
It's a lot to get right and it's a lot to get wrong. But a great toast, that is special. And that's what your guests are not going to forget.
There comes a time in everyone's life when they meet their one true love. That moment came for George 25 years ago when he met me.
Originally, the idea of a toast was two guys, big dudes probably, with chalices, clanking their pewter goblets together in the hopes that a little bit of your liquid would go into mine and my liquid would go into yours so that I could make sure that you weren't trying to poison me. And that's a toast.
The wedding toast, it's a time-honored tradition. It's totally expected that a toast will be given at the wedding reception and that it be meaningful and really encompass who the couple is.
Cheers! The wedding toast is an art form. It's the ability to connect with a large group of people and to make it seem like I'm talking right to you.
You've been elected as a representative of these two people, and if you nail it, they seem more intelligent, they seem better looking, they seem more popular.
Sometimes we don't want to see people succeed when they give their toast. He didn't ask me to give a toast. Who's this jerk that he did ask to give a toast to?
For the next 40 years, people are going to look back at that speech and be like, you know what, that guy's cool. Or are you going to start off and be like, that guy's kind of a loser?
Be yourself. The couple chose you. They know exactly the type of person you are.
I'm a builder. I like to measure things. You can't measure the power in this room.
Just share your heart and let it flow.
To a great night, to two great people.
Congratulations. I love you both.
I love you both. I love you both.
People say start with a joke, which conceptually is right.
Growing up, we were polar opposites. He was smart and driven. I was, and still am, incredibly good looking.
But really what you want to do is start with something that is meaningful and impactful.
I hit the jackpot. I picked up a son, and I picked up 2 grandsons.
Structure it in 3, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Tell something about the past, tell something about the present, and give a hope for the future.
May there always be lots of delicious wine for you to drink together.
The perfect toast is telling a story that really connects the entire audience to the couple, and it's very telling of them. Like, it's so him, it's so her.
Make a list of just simple adjectives that you want people to know about your friend.
Scotty's a wonderful friend.
I love his loyalty.
I'm amazed by Matt's courage.
Focus on what is a story that best exemplifies that word.
He'll stand up to anyone, regardless of their size, if they try to push past him at a rock concert.
Did you ever see a guy with a gunshot wound trying to wave to a crowd? That's what people who are receiving a bad toast have to do.
Roasting the couple during a toast is a don't. You want to stick to interesting stories that don't involve risque behavior.
To the stylish nurse who enjoys an occasional lap dance from an Asian transvestite.
This is the reception. This is like the classy part of the wedding weekend.
Usually with a lot of best men, it's the frat story, the drunk story. One speech had the running theme was that this guy liked to pee on his friends.
He was like, our friends know about it. And I was like, yeah, but you're 6 people and the wedding's 200.
And
Like,
one of those 200 people is like that guy's grandmother.
Great Shakespeare said it best, brevity is the soul of wit.
I say keep speeches, wedding toasts, 3 to 4 minutes max.
Rather you have them being like, oh, I wish that was longer than, oh my God, when will he stop?
Having a great toast at the reception really does sort of tie it all up together.
People cry and laugh at good speeches in the same speech, and that's because the person's present and they're really feeling it.
Having a great wedding toast, that's one of the key factors to giving definition to this new life stage for this couple. It's an important part of the wedding.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about toasts. So some of these are tips from the video, but some of these I'm going to give you a little extra about. So for toast, regardless of whether it's a wedding or any kind of special achievement, you do want to start with something interesting. Now the video mentioned jokes, but if you're not somebody who's naturally comfortable with telling jokes, you don't have to do that. But start with something attention-grabbing, like we did with the self-introduction speech. You want to start with something to grab the attention of your audience. It could be a question, it could be a quote, it could be song lyrics, but think about something that fits the occasion and start with something interesting. As far as the structure for a toast goes, usually it's a past, present, future structure. You start by talking about your past connection with the bride or the groom or whoever you're talking about. Discuss your past. Then you move on and discuss them in the present and why are you toasting them today? Are they getting married? Are they graduating from college? So what have they achieved in the present? And then at the end of a toast, you always raise your glass and you toast to something in their future. It could be, for a married couple, a life of happiness together. For a graduate of college, it could be, that you go out and achieve your dreams. But you want to toast for something for their future at the end. Okay, now personal stories are always good in toast. If you have childhood stories or anything along those lines with a person, stories are fantastic, but please be careful with humor and ask yourself if your toast is appropriate for mixed company. Stories that involve things like people getting arrested or people behaving inappropriately or like in the video it talked about the one guy that liked to pee on people. Yeah, you definitely do not want to do that in your toast. Think about how embarrassed you would be if someone said those kinds of things in front of someone you really wanted to impress. Okay, so watch out for roasting. Sometimes that's what we call toasts that are laced with all kinds of inappropriate humor. You don't want to do that. You also want to keep toasts short. The video said no more than 3 to 4 minutes. I would say no more than 5 at the absolute most. I've heard stories of weddings where people were able to eat entire plates of food and go back to the line, fill them up, and the same person's talking that was when they first got their food. You don't want to be remembered as the person who wouldn't shut up at the wedding. So please make sure you keep them short. And then if you are at some kind of event where alcohol is present, first of all, if you're under 21, you shouldn't be drinking anyway. But if you're at an event, you're over 21 and alcohol is present. Sometimes people think it's a good idea to take a shot of something before they give their speech in order to calm your nerves. But sometimes 1 shot turns into 5 shots. So you want to be extremely careful with alcohol. If your nerves are already in overdrive because you're nervous about your speech and then you get drunk on top of it, you don't know what's going to happen. So please be very careful. I tend to tell people if you are going to drink at a wedding and you have to give a speech, save it as a treat for when you get done as opposed to liquid courage. Okay, you don't want to be remembered as the bridesmaid who confessed that she's been in love with the groom this whole time. So just be very, very careful. But for your speeches for this class, you want to make sure, and this is regardless of whether you do a commemorative speech or a toast, you want to make sure that you clearly introduce the subject of your speech at the beginning. I need to know up front, why are you talking about this person? Is this your brother? Is this your cousin? Is this a person that you just really, really admire? But what's your connection here? Okay, I've heard speeches before where I didn't know they were talking about Meemaw until the last 10 seconds of it. Okay. You also want to make sure you have some very clear form of organization, whether you have main points, whether you structure it past, present, and future, but please make sure you have some clear form of organization that's going to be easy to follow. How you choose to structure it this time is kind of up to you, but please make sure that it is organized and easy to follow. Thirdly, don't forget to have a conclusion. In a toast, usually the conclusion is where you ask everyone to raise their glasses and toast to whatever your wish is for the future. In a commemorative speech, you want to have something that wraps up the speech adequately. It could be a quote, it could be a final story, it could be a final thought or a lesson, but don't forget to have some type of conclusion to wrap your speech up appropriately. And then finally, the last thing you need to do is make sure you use lots of appropriate stories, creative language, and examples throughout your speech. Your speech should not feel like an informative research presentation. It should feel like you have a personal connection, and so using stories, language, and examples is going to be a good way to flesh out your speech and make us understand your connection to this person. So to conclude, unlike some other types of presentations, like informative or persuasive presentations, special occasion speeches are brief and the focus of the attention is usually not about you, it's usually about someone else. So if you use your words creatively, you can help prepare the audience for a speaker, you can help raise their interest, put them at ease, you can create goodwill at events, and ultimately, if you do a special occasion speech very well, it can help make the event a success and ultimately make you look successful. And so with that being said, I wanted to go over and show you guys the directions for your special occasion speech, which is going to be coming up. So give me just a second, let me pull those up. Okay, so here we go. These are going to be the guidelines for your special occasion speech for this class. It's going to be worth 10% of your final grade, and as with the last speech, there's not going to be a makeup unless you have documentation of why you couldn't make it to class, illness, injury, death in the family, etc. So for this speech, you're going to pick and present one of the following types of special occasion speeches. You're going to be able to do a commemorative speech, which is a tribute that focuses on the person, place, thing, etc. of your choice. Or you're going to be able to do a toast, which is going to be a tribute that you make for some kind of special event or accomplishment. For example, a wedding, promotion, baby dedication, graduation, etc. Now for this speech, you should plan to speak between 3 to 6 minutes, as that's about the amount of time you'd be expected to speak at a real event. If you go more than 30 seconds either above or below the time limit, you do lose 5 points on your final grade for this speech. Okay, so that's something important to think about. This one is the first one that has a time limit. If your speech is more than 30 seconds above 6 minutes or more than 30 seconds below 3 minutes, you will lose 5 points. Now, you are allowed to take a timekeeping device up with you when you speak so you can keep an eye on the time. Also, if you would like to have someone in the audience keep time for you and non-verbally signal you about your progress, I'm fine with that. Some people like to have a buddy in the audience give them hand signals or hold up a sign. That's fine as long as the person doesn't yell at you when your time is up. I'm good with it. Now, you're welcome to use notes when you speak for this, and I would encourage you to make note cards. As with the last speech, please don't use your cell phone or laptop as your notes because things can go wrong. You are not required to use a visual aid for this speech. It's going to be your choice. In some instances, students do find it helpful to have pictures of their subject available to put up on the board, but it's up to your discretion here. Now the rubric I'm going to be using to grade this is going to be on Blackboard, so please take a look at that once you finish this video. And this speech is going to take 2 class periods to complete, and so this time you'll provide feedback to your classmates on the day that you aren't giving your speech. So as with the last speech, you're going to have those feedback sheets to fill out, but this time, whichever day you aren't giving your speech is the day you're doing feedback. Now, if you want to view samples of this type of speech, there are some in your e-text. The directions are in this document that's also posted on Blackboard. And then as you put together this speech, I would recommend you read and take notes on Chapter 18, which is Special Occasion Speaking, Chapter 12, which is Using Language Creatively, and Chapter 13, which is Delivery, as the concepts in those chapters are going to directly tie in with your ability to be successful on this speech. Now, a few frequently asked questions I get about this speech. Number 1, what if I do a toast and I don't know anyone who's getting married right now? Can I still do a toast? Yes, you can still do a toast. For this toast, I don't mind if you take and pick a friend who's not getting married and you invent a fictional spouse for them. That is fine. They don't have to be real people, but if you choose to use people who aren't real for this speech, please make sure that you flesh them out enough so that it doesn't sound like they're fake. Okay, so please make sure you keep that in mind. So these guidelines are all on Blackboard. I'm going to be posting on the course schedule when we're going to be doing these, and the schedule will be revised some, so please make sure you look at that. As always, if you have questions about special occasion speaking, please let me know. I hope you found this video informative, and I hope to speak to you guys soon. So have a great one, and I'll see you guys shortly.